Hi, welcome to Green Flag Attraction, a relationship podcast designed to help you uncover your red flag addiction
and create your own green flag style attraction.
I am your host, Ian, and this is your co-host, Sarah.
Woohoo! We are diving into episode 6 today.
It's going to be a juicy one, so get ready.
Oh, yeah, it is. Setting boundaries in narcissistic relationships, strategies for self-protection, and this is going to be good.
When love meets ego.
When love meets ego.
So let's get into it. And I know a lot of viewers out there are either in a narcissistic relationship or you are the narcissistic one in a relationship. So, or
you're recovering and you have PTSD. I'll raise my hand.
So let's jump into that. I guess it's really understanding what is a narcissistic relationship.
I think that there's people who have dated narcissists before and people who have dated not narcissists but maybe thought that they were. It can be like spit around, like, oh, they were a narcissist or that person's a narcissist.
Easy to put a label on someone.
Easy to put a label on. And so we just kind of wanted to set a standard definition of what it is in life, and then also just to kind of give a definition for this episode in case you haven't dealt with a narcissist before, or if you're trying to determine if someone is a narcissist. So narcissistic personality disorder involves a pattern of self-centered, arrogant thinking and behavior, a lack of empathy and consideration for other people, and an excessive need for admiration. Others often describe people with NPD as cocky, manipulative, selfish, patronizing, and demanding. So ask yourself, do you know or have you known or dated a narcissist before?
And how did that show up for your life?
Yeah, right? How did it show up for you? For me, it was constant stress and frustration, feeling like I was crazy. But we want to talk about some tools if you are in a relationship with a narcissistic person, and some tools for setting boundaries, and then just some practical strategies for self-protection, because when I found myself in a narcissistic relationship, it's really easy to feel stuck. At least I did. And so also feeling like I was crazy because I was being told that I was crazy from someone who was trying to manipulate me. So with the 5 examples, or with the 5 steps, I'm excited to dive into it. So do you want to go over number 1?
Yeah. And really when it comes to, narcissistic relationships and whatnot, I've dealt with that as well. Right. And that's interesting to say, because typically in today's society, it's the male that is narcissistic, right? It's typically the girls going out there, or the females are saying that, oh, he's narcissistic. All he cares about is himself, or it's, he's in love with himself, or his self-image is higher than it needs to be. But in reality, it can go both ways, right? Like I was with a partner that, had a lack of empathy or consideration for others, right? And it was always what's going on in her life and how is it affecting her, and more of the victim mindset. And that still is a narcissistic tendency, right? So just because someone isn't a full narcissistic and doesn't believe that the world revolves around them doesn't mean that they don't have narcissistic traits or things that you might not align with or agree with.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we're going to get into is really, one is identifying what your limits are.
Yeah. First step, identify what your limits are, because different people have different thresholds for what they want to tolerate.
Some people want to be with a narcissistic person. That is something that drives them. I'm serious. It's people, individuals that they are turned on to individuals that have narcissistic tendencies, right? They want to be with the alpha. They want to be with the man, the guy, right? And then vice versa. And that goes into male relationships, as far as the females are concerned as well.
Yeah. So I think it's just really identifying where the lines are for you within these tendencies, because I think that it's such a broad spectrum of where the needle can land in all of this. When you're looking at this description, arrogant thinking or behavior, self-centered, manipulative, selfish,
patronizing.
These are all just they have such extremes. And so what is the line in the sand for you? And I think that this is so important for you to figure out right now, because as someone who has been in a relationship with a narcissist, and thinking and living in the belief that things won't get worse. In my situation, they did. And so, like, what is that line in the sand? Because I didn't ask myself those questions almost until it was too late. And then I found myself in situations where it was like, wow, if I had had this conversation with myself earlier, I might have been a little bit more like prepared with a plan of action. And so, you know, if you know what your limit is, when this happens, like, what are you going to do next?
Yeah. And then also, after you identify what your limits are, you need to communicate your needs.
Yeah. Step 2,
right, with your partner.
Communicate it. Yeah.
And if you don't communicate your needs, how do you expect anything ever to change? Right. Like I like the fact that you're a little cocky, right? It's something that I'm attracted to. That could turn off some men. I'm sure it has turned off some men. Right. And same thing, vice versa me to you. But I also am very humble and knowing where I come from and you know what I've accomplished.
I think it also is important to note it's not at the expense of other people. So yes, I'm cocky, confidence, have audacity, all of those things, but I'm not hurting you. I'm not trying to control you. I'm not trying to be manipulative. So there also is the intention behind it as well. And so I think that it's important with step number 2, communicating your needs, recognizing that these are your needs and you can communicate them. But just because you communicate them, and especially if you're dealing with a narcissist, it does not mean that they're going to change. In fact, you can go into that conversation probably expecting that nothing's going to change. Keep your expectations really low, but communicating them is the first step.
Yep, 100%. And after you identify what your limits are, you communicate those limits to your partner, then you have to have the self-care, right? It's crucial. It's important. You have to be able to stick to what your communications were, right? If you have needs that haven't been met, then you need to have enough self-care for yourself to stick to those needs.
I think one of the things that kept me the most sane in my turbulent relationships and in my relationships with a narcissist was my priority of putting myself and taking care of myself when I wasn't around him. And I know that that sounds so crazy, but it was like I needed to give all of myself, like recharge my batteries, take care of myself, because I knew that when I was going to be around him, it was going to be really draining. And so I kind of like did this yo-yo, but I found that when I was putting myself first and when I was really prioritizing that time, I was so much more equipped to go into those difficult conversations or those like that environment. I had so much more control and so much more confidence going into them because I was putting myself first in other areas. And I have dated different levels of narcissists, and I've also had different levels of confidence with narcissists. Like I had one relationship where he was really controlling and I fell into that 100%. And then my next relationship, he was really controlling, but I didn't fall for it as much. I was just kind of like that blunt person that was like, I'm not doing that even if you want me to, like delete that photo off Instagram. No. Whereas like I did it before, right? So as you grow, I think that it's also important to notice that you can like growth is growth no matter where you're at.
Yeah. And you can, and also it's, you know, when it comes to self-care, that also comes back to it's okay to speak your needs.
Yeah.
Right. And your needs are valid.
Yeah.
Regardless of how crazy they might seem to you or to others, they're your needs and no one else's.
Yeah. You're also responsible for yourself, and it's not your partner's responsibility to take care of you, whether they're the most amazing, incredible, supportive, healthy relationship in the world, partner in the world, or if it is a narcissist. At the end of the day, your needs are your needs. And so self-care would be on this list if it was, you know, creating a relationship with a healthy person. Like it needs to be there, but especially if you're dating a narcissist, because any extra boost that you can give yourself to be, you know, to level that out is just so important.
Yeah. And just because you're in a relationship with a narcissist doesn't mean that you're wrong or that relationship is wrong.
100%.
It just means that there's some things that you need to figure out. You need to identify your limits. You need to communicate those.
Well, is it working for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is the relationship working for you? And if it is, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's not, these are the tools that can help you turn the boat in a different direction.
Yeah, which brings us to our next thing is boundaries without consequences are just wishes.
Yes.
Right? So it's sticking to boundaries and setting proper consequences for people that, overstep their boundaries.
Yeah.
Or the boundaries that you've set.
Yeah.
And that seems a little elementary, I guess you could say, but you can't have boundaries without consequences, right? Because if not, you're wishing that someone's going to change without giving them any repercussion for continuing the same actions.
Yeah. I remember the first time I heard the quote, boundaries without consequences are just wishes. It was like a slap in the face, because I was the person who would have these boundaries and then the person would break them, and I was the forgiving person, and so it's just like, okay, we can try again. And I will never forget, like, boundaries without consequences are just wishes. And it was like, wow, I can wish here all day, but until there are consequences, which narcissists do not like, then there really is going to be no change in behavior.
Let's give people some examples to work off of, right? Because it's one thing to hear, okay, set boundaries, set consequences. Okay, cool, but what does that mean? So for an example, let's say you are dating let's look at the examples here, a very cocky, manipulative, self-centered person.
Okay.
Right? And you get upset that every time you go out in public with this guy, all he does is talk about himself or take, the spotlight or the limelight's on him, or every conversation is turned around into something about that person, right? One thing you could do is you could set a boundary of, hey, when we're out in public, I want you to, I would appreciate it if you focus on other people and not always made it about yourself. And if you continue to do these in social situations, I'm no longer going to invite you.
Yes.
So that's a consequence, or that's a boundary you set and a consequence you put behind that boundary. So that way you can feel comfortable with, hey, I'm going to bring this person to the next event, but if he oversteps that boundary, I won't feel bad not inviting him to the next one, because it's a boundary I set. But also you have to abide by those boundaries and those consequences, because if you set a boundary but there are no consequences and you don't follow through with the consequence, you can't be upset for unchanged behavior.
Yeah. That's a great example. I think another one was given to me as an example in a class was where the wife, when she drank, she just turned into a different person. And so the husband didn't like it. And so he had a boundary that if she was going to drink, he wasn't going to be there. And so there were times where, like, she would drink and he would literally leave the house. Is that inconvenient? Yes. But that was his boundary. And, like, at that point, the person can choose to change. And so I think that it is important with the boundaries, is knowing that you're not trying to force the other person to change. Boundaries are about keeping you safe. And so, if you don't feel safe around someone who's drinking, or you don't feel, safe because someone's incredibly rude to everyone around them, like, that's not a good situation for you to be in. And so boundaries aren't about punishing the other person. I think that that's really important to remember. And so boundaries can also be adjusted. Like, I had boundaries at the beginning of my healing journey that things did not feel safe for me to do that feel safe for me now. And so it's like your boundaries can also adjust and change as you grow.
Yeah. And an easy one for our listeners to adopt if this applies to you is a big one for me and other people. And this is something I learned from a class we were in as well, is timing, right? I'm the type of person that if I'm not 5 minutes early for a appointment, or if not 5 minutes early for a meeting, I'm in stress mode. I'm freaking out. I feel like I'm going to be late, right? So if you're with a partner that does not care about being on time and doesn't care about when they show up to a place, an easy boundary to set is, hey, we're leaving at X time. And if you're not ready by X time, I'm leaving without you. And that was huge to me. I'm like, wow, that is so rude. Oh my gosh. But really, that person was being true to their values. They value being on time. They value their word, and they're not going to let anyone or anything get in between that. So they put a boundary in place and a consequence of, hey, if you're not ready at 5:50 when we have to be somewhere at 6:30, I'm leaving without you, and you can take an Uber or you can drive yourself.
Yeah.
And taking the emotion out of it and not worrying how that other person's going to feel, and 100% just being true to yourself.
Yeah. Last, number 5 is seeking support. And I think that this is easier said than done, because when I was dating a narcissist, everyone knew he was a narcissist. So I felt a lot of shame around it because people didn't like him. And so seeking support was difficult because I didn't have a lot of people in my corner. And so when I say seek support, it doesn't mean necessarily go to your best friend or go to your mom. Like, what do you need to feel supported, and who can you talk to that knows what you're going through so that you can feel heard and you can feel supported by people who get it? And I think that that is such a different conversation than with someone who's just there as your best friend, supporting you and like wanting you to be happy. It's like when I specifically looked for support for me to heal from dating specifically a narcissist, it was such a different conversation because I understood the behavior so much better, and it released a lot of shame and guilt that I had been holding from honestly just feeling really stupid for believing a lot of the lies. But you know, seek that support. Find a support group on Facebook. Look for accounts on Instagram that, you know, give helpful tools. You know, find maybe a meetup in your area. Like, there's so many things that you can do, and so I think that getting the support is so essential.
And really, one point I want to make on you know, seeking support is make sure that you're getting support from someone that you would actually listen to, if that makes sense.
Trade places with.
Yeah, don't go and get relationship advice from your best friend that's been married and divorced 5 or 6 times or has never been in a successful relationship, or don't go ask your parents if they haven't modeled a successful relationship to you. So when it comes to getting support, I'm a big proponent. I know you're a big proponent on, you know, therapy, right? There's so many, like you said, if it's not a group, if you don't want to go around other individuals, then pay a professional to sit down and talk with them about your issues, what you're going through.
Yeah.
Right. And I know before that was in our society that was kind of frowned upon, or people didn't really talk about therapy. But I know in today's world, everyone's talking about therapy and the benefit they get from it. So don't be afraid to go to someone and talk with them, or to do personal development or self-growth, or to get into a community or a class or a group of people. All it can do is help you succeed.
Yeah. And if you are afraid, do it anyways. I mean, there are just I just I want to hug anyone who's been in situations like that. And there's so many people out there that want to love and support you. And so the reason I'm just like with the seeking the support is so important to me is that for so long I didn't believe that I had it. And because I didn't believe that I had it, and because of the shame of not wanting to have those conversations with people who knew me, I stayed stuck for a long time. And so I think that with the support, just learning you're not crazy, you are not alone, and like, you deserve to find the people who believe in you and support you. And you probably don't know them yet, but they're out there.
And when it comes to support, if you guys are struggling out there and you don't know where to go, and you don't know where to turn to, and you need a support system, or you need a connection, or just an avenue to go, reach out, DM us, right? Send us a message. We're here to help you. Write in the comments. We'll reach out to you. Like, really, we're here to serve our community, to serve you. And if you need help, if there's people in your community that you can't reach out to, if you don't have that support system, you're not alone. So feel free, like I said, at any time to reach out to us, and we'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for saying that. Wow, this was a good episode.
It was.
Episode 6.
So yes, if you're dealing with a narcissistic relationship, if you are the narcissistic one in a relationship, if you know of a friend that's dealing with a narcissistic relationship, tune in, listen to the nuggets that we dropped today, and really just see what can you do to live the life that you deserve, right?
Yeah.
And really get what you need and you want out of a relationship.
Yeah. And I like to do rapid fire at the end because I like to forget things. All right, so here we go. Step 1, identify your limits. Step 2, communicate your needs. Step 3, give yourself some self-care. Step 4, stick to your boundaries and set consequences. And step 5, seek support.
If you're getting any value from this, please like, share, subscribe, leave us a comment. Let us know what your biggest takeaway was, what you would like us to cover in future episodes. We're here to support you, give you as much value as we can, and we appreciate you. So remember,
you're responsible for it all.
yes, you are.
Bye.